Hey, the Dolphins are gearing up for an AFC showdown against the Baltimore Ravens, and I need your help. You don't want to be the one to jinx it, so make sure you like this video if you want the Dolphins to win. We've been on a hot streak with this, so don't just scroll past. Like the video. We got a lot to talk about it. Let's do it next on Dolphins Today. Oh, yes, week 17 of the National Football League. And what a game we've got. The Miami Dolphins on the road against the Baltimore Ravens, and arguably the biggest matchup of the season so far. So let's dive into it. Here's what we've got coming up on today's show. Of course, the latest injury news, because at this point in the season, everybody's dealing with some bumps and bruises and some very notable names on this Dolphins injury report. We'll dive into that and do our best to give you a prediction of who's going to be available for Mike McDaniel to utilize on Sunday. And like I mentioned, there are some big names on there. Tua, Raheem Mostert, and Jaylen Waddle. We've got updates for all of them, so let's get right into it. Buckle it up, dial it in, and here we go. From Barry Jackson, who's a very busy man, may I add. He's also covering the Miami Hurricanes and their bowl season, but obviously, he's got the latest for the Miami Dolphins as well. Talking about Tua's thumb injury, which we learned later this week that he suffered against the Cowboys, but never actually slowed down any performance in the actual game. It was just something that he was kind of lingering and dealing with, as well as a quad injury. So here's what Barry Jackson had to say when he asked Tua about him being limited by his thumb injury and asked the offensive coordinator, Frank Smith. He said, everyone is working through some stuff, didn't really want to elaborate, and declined to specify whether or not Mike White will take more snaps this week regarding that thumb injury. It happened on a throw in the game against the Cowboys. So nobody really knew Tua was dealing with any kind of injury until this portion later on in the week. And I do think when you look at the Dolphins depth chart at the quarterback, obviously one of the many narratives around this Dolphins team has been they will go as far as Tua's health. And in a season where across the National Football League, we've seen a number of quarterbacks miss time, Tua has been steady and available. We have seen Mike White from time to time in mop-up duty, and we know he is a capable backup. But obviously, number one, Tua Tagovailoa gives you the best chance to win. So that said, I do think Tua will be in the starting lineup on Sunday against the Ravens. And a little bit more on Tua's status from Joe Shad, another Dolphins insider, regarding Tua at practice on Thursday, and a number of names that are out of there that you'll notice, including Jaylen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Teron Armstead, Robert Hunt, Austin Jackson, Robbie Chosen. The list goes on, but most importantly, take a look at that key observation with the little key emoji as well. Tua throwing thumb was seen throwing perfectly fine. So rest assured, we feel good about Tua's status for that game against the Baltimore Ravens. But anytime there's any kind of quarterback injury, we got to bring you the latest. So when you look at the matchup between Lamar Jackson and Tua Tagovailoa, a couple of potential NFL MVP candidates, with Lamar being the betting favorite right now. There are the numbers, and when you break it down, obviously the production has been there for both these guys, but Tua doing his very best to kind of outperform Lamar statistically speaking. But one thing that jumps out, Tua does have 2 more turnovers, and that all-important record at the bottom, 12 wins for Lamar versus Tua leading the Dolphins to an 11-4 record. But total yards, Tua, we've got more. Total touchdowns, 2 more for Tua as well. But in the end, all that matters is who wins the game. So I think Sunday's game will go a long way in determining who becomes the next favorite to win the NFL MVP, because it seems like it changes every single day. So I want you to let me know, as we stand right now, do you think Tua wins the NFL MVP? It would take a great performance against the Ravens and then an exclamation point, cherry on top type of performance against the Bills in Week 18. But let me know. Type Y for yes or N for no. Now, coming up, we've got more injury updates to get to, but first, I got to give a huge shout out to today's presenting sponsor. That is Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. At this point in the game, you know how it works, but I'll tell you anyways. You simply pick more or less on a player's projected stat total, and that's it. It's easy, it's simple, it's fun. It doesn't take any kind of complicated Excel spreadsheet or anything like that. You're not competing against a bunch of NFL experts. It's just you versus the projections, baby. And that is where the fun begins at prizepicks.com/CLNS. You got to get there now because we've got up to a $100 deposit match waiting for you. And as I do with every Dolphins games, you know I've got picks for you. You can fade me or you can ride with me. It's up to you. And how about Devon Achane? Maybe a little breakout game. You know, all attention on Tyreek and why not Raheem Mostert. Maybe Devon Achane will sneak into the end zone for a touchdown. So I'm picking more on his projected touchdown list at 0.5. And I think the Cheetah's going to have a big game as well. He was held under 100 yards against the Cowboys, 99 to be exact. But get me the Cheetah in the end zone as well. And this Dolphins defense is going to hold the Ravens to field goals. You know, Justin Tucker's one of the best in the game, so I'll say he makes more than a field goal and a half. But that's how fun it can be. You can get a little crazy, get a little bit flexible with it. And what's also nice is Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an insurance policy. So if one of your players gets injured in the first half, rest assured that player is rebooted and is no longer a part of the pick. So that's how it works. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. And we love you and we care about you. So we'll put that link right in the description of today's video. All you have to do is click on it and you're there. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Now, we've talked about Tua Tagovailoa. Let's continue in the backfield with arguably the most important players around this Miami Dolphins team, and you could make that case for several different players, but Raheem Mostert is tied for the lead in the NFL with total touchdowns with 21, and you know he set a Dolphins franchise record a couple weeks ago with his 18th rushing touchdown, so you know he is important to the success of this Dolphins offense, and he has been battling the injury bug as most running backs do, especially in this juncture of the season, working through a lingering ankle injury. And here's the latest from Joe Shad, straight from the horse's mouth. The running back coach, Eric Studsville, expects Raheem Mostert to play versus the Ravens, which is great news. That said, we also saw a little dose of Jeff Wilson Jr. against the Cowboys, and we know Devon Achane is a very capable running back as well. So you like to have full force in that running back room, especially when you consider what Mostert's been able to accomplish so far, and he has been very, very impressive for the Miami Dolphins. So likely we will see Raheem Mostert playing, and as I mentioned, leads the NFL with 18 rushing touchdowns in comparison to 21 total, which is really impressive, tied with Christian McCaffrey there. So the production's been there for Raheem Mostert, and you take a look at it as a total in 2023, over 1,000 yards, averaging nearly 5 yards a carry, and like I said, he's been a magnet in that end zone, part of all kinds of production the Dolphins have been getting from the running back room, best rushing offense in the NFL, and it's because of Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane, and like I said, against the Cowboys, look out. Jeff Wilson Jr. kind of had that moment in his season when he picked up that crucial, and you could make the case, game-winning third and short conversion that led to the walk-off field goal. So Raheem Mostert likely in, Devon Achane likely in, and like I said, Jeff Wilson has been good to go as well. And if you ask Raheem Mostert, go straight to the source, right? Here's what he had to say about him potentially playing or potentially missing the game, such a big game against the Ravens. And he kind of broke it down like this. I got two options. He said, quote, I can go in a game and complain about an injury or about how many joints don't feel the best and so on and so forth. But I just look at it like I get an opportunity to have a gold jacket. That's my goal. So you talk about Raheem Mostert. We've seen on Hard Knocks, he's a family man. He's involved. And he's also a guy that has the goal of being a Hall of Famer. And based on the production that he's put forth this year, I think that is a realistic goal. Now, turning the page to the wide receiver room, Jaylen Waddle. He recently went over the 1,000-yard mark, and fact, interesting note, became the first ever Dolphins wide receiver to have 1,000 yards receiving in the first 3 years of his career. But if you watch that Cowboys game like I know you did, you saw him go down with that high ankle sprain after that jet sweep play. Mike McDaniel likes to get the ball in his hands, not always in the traditional way for a receiver. He's been used in the reverse game, in the jet sweep game, and unfortunately against the Cowboys, it resulted in a high ankle sprain. Now, I wouldn't say there's conflicting reports. There's just a lot of chatter out there about Jaylen Waddle's status. First from Marcel Louis-Jacques, one of the Dolphins insider, and again, using this information from Adam Schefter, who says he has a source that says Jaylen Waddle isn't expected to play Sunday versus the Ravens. And again, with it being a high ankle sprain, it does get a little bit unpredictable at times. Remember a couple weeks back against the Jets where Tyreek tried to give it a go and then in pregame warmups just didn't quite have it, so he was inactive. We might be dealing with a similar situation here with Jaylen Waddle, but there is no doubt when you look at the production, yes, Tyreek gets a lot of the credit, as he should, but Jaylen Waddle right there as the 1-2 punch. As I mentioned, over 1,000 yards. That's just the 4 touchdowns this season. But part of what Jaylen Waddle is so good at is that yards per catch at 14.1. He led the NFL in that category last year. So that said, still a question mark, but you got to give Jaylen Waddle a lot of credit for the production that he's had. First player in Dolphins history with 1,000 yards receiving in each of his first 3 seasons. Really impressive, but you also know he's impressed guys like Tyreek Hill with his mentality, with his mindset. Here's what Tyreek had to say to the media regarding Jaylen Waddle's status, and Tyreek put it like this: I'm going to manifest that he'll play. Speak it into existence, right? I'm going to put it out there. The type of player he is, his mindset, man, he understands what's at stake. If he can't go, we support it as well. So the support is there for Jaylen Waddle, but obviously you hope that he can give it a go. And overall, in the end, it's about showing Jaylen Waddle some love because of the great wide receiver that he's been for the Dolphins. So do it now. Spam that 1-7 in the comments. Show Jaylen Waddle some love as he hopefully will be able to give it a go against the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday. So crucial to that passing attack for the Miami Dolphins. Now, speaking of that, we always have a live watch party, which you don't want to miss. Dolphins and Ravens, so much on the line. Potential number 1 seed, obviously playoff implications, and so on and so forth. And we're going to have an awesome watch party, so make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a thing. And, of course, daily Dolphins content leading up to Dolphins versus Ravens on Sunday. It's a 1 o'clock game, so we'll be on the air with our watch party at noon and leading up to kickoff in what is sure to be an exciting marquee matchup between 2 AFC prominent playoff clinching teams, I should say, and it'll be a good one. So come early, get loud, and we will have a blast at our 17th watch party of the season. How about that? Dolphins and Ravens. Shout out to Sammy B on the 1s and 2s. Appreciate all the help, and as always, appreciate each and every one of you tuning in to this edition of Dolphins Today.